Emma woke up on a chilly Saturday morning, expecting a quiet, ordinary day filled with coffee, a cozy blanket, and her favorite book. She had been looking forward to some peace, a break from the endless rush of work and small responsibilities, but that plan quickly melted away when her old heater sputtered, coughed, and went silent, leaving the apartment cold and uncomfortable. She tried fiddling with it herself, pressing buttons, adjusting knobs, even consulting the small instruction manual, but nothing worked. With a sigh of frustration, she picked up her phone and called a local repair service, expecting an overworked, tired mechanic with grease-stained clothes who would fix the heater with quick efficiency and leave without much conversation. She hung up and stared out the window, watching the soft snow beginning to settle on the street below, trying to convince herself that a cold apartment could still be bearable with a warm drink and a good book. An hour later, a knock on the door startled her, and when she opened it, her eyes widened in surprise. Standing there was a man in a neat uniform, carrying a toolbox, his dark hair falling slightly over his forehead, eyes warm and curious, and a smile that made her heart skip unexpectedly. "Hi, I'm Alex," he said, his voice calm and friendly. Emma stepped aside, letting him in, her mind suddenly racing with curiosity and an unfamiliar flutter in her chest. She watched him carefully as he knelt by the heater, examining it with quiet concentration, his movements smooth and confident, each gesture purposeful yet easy, like he had done this 1,000 times before. She tried to focus on the heater, but found herself distracted by the tilt of his head, the way sunlight caught the glint in his eyes, and the subtle warmth of his presence in the room. He hummed softly, almost absent-mindedly, as he worked, and every so often, their hands brushed when he handed her a small tool or adjusted a wire, leaving her heart racing in ways she hadn't felt in years. Small talk started naturally, casual at first, about the weather, the building, and the neighborhood, but beneath the words, an unspoken connection began to grow, gentle yet undeniable. Emma felt a strange mix of excitement and nervousness, a sense that this ordinary day, one she had expected to be quiet and uneventful, was shifting, becoming something she couldn't predict. She tried to act normal, to concentrate on the heater, but her thoughts kept drifting to him, to his smile, to the way he seemed to listen as if every little detail she mentioned mattered, and to the warmth he brought into the cold room that had nothing to do with the heater itself. The sound of the wind outside and the soft tick of the clock faded in her awareness, replaced by the rhythm of her own heartbeat, quickening every time Alex looked up and caught her watching him. The tension in the room was subtle, unspoken, yet powerful, an invisible thread that drew them closer without a word. Emma realized, with a mixture of surprise and hesitation, that this was not the quiet Saturday she had imagined. Something about Alex, his presence, his calm confidence, and the unexpected charm in his smile, had turned her ordinary day into something extraordinary, and she could not help but wonder what would happen next as he continued to work, so close yet so unknowable, bringing warmth and possibility into her life with every small, careful movement. Emma barely knew what to think as she watched Alex move around the apartment, his hands skillful and steady while he inspected the heater, lifting panels and checking wires with ease. He worked in a quiet rhythm that made the small room feel alive, almost as if the ordinary apartment had transformed into a place where something unexpected and important was happening. Every so often, he looked up and smiled at her, a casual, reassuring smile that made her stomach twist in a way she hadn't felt in years, and she realized she was noticing details she normally wouldn't, the way his dark hair fell slightly over his forehead, the calm certainty in his movements, even the faint smell of his cologne that lingered softly in the air, grounding her in a strange, pleasant way. They started to talk more naturally, about everyday things at first, the city, the neighborhood, the mild snow falling outside, but gradually the conversation drifted to small personal details, and Emma felt a growing comfort in his presence, a sense that she could speak freely without judgment. He listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions, responding with gentle curiosity that made her feel both seen and understood, and the way he focused on her words made her heart beat faster without warning. She found herself explaining little things she usually kept to herself, her favorite coffee spot, the tiny quirks of the apartment, how she sometimes felt invisible in the fast-moving world outside, while Alex nodded or hummed softly, always engaged, never distracted. There was a subtle electricity in the air whenever their hands brushed, handing each other tools, or when he leaned closer to read a number on the heater's panel. Brief contact that left a lingering warmth she couldn't ignore. Emma felt a mix of nervous excitement and curiosity, a pull toward him she hadn't anticipated, and it made the mundane act of fixing a heater feel charged with meaning. Alex cracked a small joke about the heater being temperamental, and she laughed, feeling a lightness that surprised her, realizing that even in this ordinary task, his presence could shift her mood entirely. Time seemed to move differently, each moment stretching just enough for her to notice the way he cared about even the smallest details, his patience, and the sincerity in his voice when he explained what he was doing. She watched him work methodically, his focus intense yet relaxed, and wondered how someone could bring such calm and competence into a room while also making her feel flustered and aware of every glance, every small gesture. The heater's faint hum returned slowly under his careful hands, each sound of progress echoing through the apartment as though marking the rhythm of their growing connection. Emma realized she was hanging on every word, every movement, captivated by the combination of competence, charm, and warmth he radiated effortlessly. The conversation became easier, more personal, touching on shared memories of the city, the subtle beauty in everyday life, and the fleeting yet meaningful moments that often passed unnoticed. She found herself silently wishing the moment would last longer, that he wouldn't leave, that the ordinary Saturday had somehow transformed into something alive, a chapter of her life she hadn't expected but didn't want to end. There was no rush, no overt drama, just the quiet building of connection, small smiles, shared glances, and a tension that was both delicate and undeniable, a tension that made the apartment feel intimate despite its simplicity. Emma noticed herself relaxing more than usual, trusting him in ways that were rare for her, letting the warmth of his presence seep into the room as naturally as the sunlight falling through the window. With every check of the heater, every adjustment, and every casual remark, the ordinary chore became a bridge, linking two lives in ways neither had anticipated, a gentle unfolding of curiosity and attraction that grew with each passing minute. She realized that something unexpected was happening, something she hadn't invited but couldn't ignore, and that her quiet Saturday had quietly turned into a day filled with suspense, interest, and a strange, compelling hope, all centered around the man working calmly and effortlessly just a few feet away. Each glance from Alex, each faint smile, made her pulse quicken, and she felt an unfamiliar mixture of nervousness and excitement, emotions she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time, leaving her both intrigued and unsettled in the best possible way, as if the world outside no longer mattered, and only this unexpected connection held any weight. As the heater started to hum back to life under Alex's careful hands, Emma felt an unexpected closeness growing between them, a warmth that had nothing to do with the appliance. Their conversation, once light and casual, began to touch on more personal matters, and Emma found herself opening up in ways she rarely did, sharing small stories from her childhood, her little victories and frustrations, and the quiet loneliness she sometimes felt in her fast-moving world. Alex listened with a patience and interest that made her feel seen, his eyes never leaving hers for too long, his voice calm and steady as he responded with thoughtful remarks that showed he truly understood. There was an undeniable tension in the room, subtle yet electric, growing with each accidental touch when he handed her a tool or adjusted a wire just a little too close, sending a flutter through her chest. She noticed every detail about him, the curve of his smile when he cracked a gentle joke, the way his fingers moved deftly over the heater's wires, and the faint warmth of his proximity whenever he leaned down to check a connection. Time seemed to slow as they shared stories, laughter, and quiet moments of reflection, and Emma realized she was caught in a web of emotions she hadn't expected to feel from a simple home repair. Each word exchanged felt significant, charged with curiosity, attraction, and a tentative intimacy that neither had named yet, but both were acutely aware of. When Alex paused to explain a tricky part of the heater, their faces came close, and the air between them thickened with anticipation, each glance lingering just a second too long, leaving Emma's heart racing and her thoughts scattered. She caught herself wondering about him in ways she hadn't allowed herself to wonder about anyone in a long time, what he liked, what made him laugh, what had brought him here today, and why his presence unsettled her so beautifully. The mundane task of fixing the heater became a backdrop for something more profound, a quiet dance of connection where every look, every shared smile, and every soft-spoken word pulled them closer without a single overt gesture. Emma felt a mix of nervousness and longing, a yearning for a connection she hadn't realized she'd missed, and the gentle tension made her senses sharper, her heart lighter, and her thoughts louder in the most confusing, thrilling way. When Alex laughed softly at one of her anecdotes, she felt a warmth spread through her chest, a recognition that this ordinary Saturday had turned extraordinary, that she had been waiting for a spark like this without even knowing it. There was no rush, no obvious sign that anything would happen beyond a friendly repair visit, yet the unspoken energy between them was undeniable, drawing them together in a way that felt almost fated. Every small movement he made, the way he leaned closer to inspect a wire, the careful precision in his work, the occasional brushing of hands, seemed charged with meaning, and Emma found herself watching him with a mix of awe and anticipation. She realized that she hadn't felt this kind of emotional pull in years, a mixture of attraction, admiration, and the quiet hope of connection, and it left her both exhilarated and slightly vulnerable. Even as he focused on the heater, she could feel the closeness lingering, a soft tension in the room that made ordinary tasks feel significant and every glance feel like an invitation. The more she observed him, the more she noticed the subtleties of his personality, the way he took care in even the smallest details, the easy confidence in his movements, the kindness that underlined his calm demeanor, and the quiet humor that made her smile without warning. Emma was caught between wanting to look away and being unable to stop herself from watching, fascinated by the way someone could feel so present, so attentive, and so magnetic all at once. As the minutes passed, the heater's warmth slowly filled the room, but it was the emotional warmth, the subtle intimacy, and the thrilling tension that made her pulse quicken and her mind spin with possibilities she hadn't allowed herself to imagine. By the time Alex straightened and wiped his hands, Emma felt an ache she couldn't name, a longing that was sweet, confusing, and exciting all at once, a quiet awareness that her ordinary day had transformed into something she might never forget. She knew, deep down, that something significant was happening between them, something unspoken yet undeniable, a fragile but undeniable connection that had grown from simple conversation and proximity, leaving her both nervous and exhilarated, eager to see where this unexpected turn in her quiet Saturday might lead. Every laugh, every glance, every soft touch had created an invisible thread, pulling them closer in a way that neither had intended but both could feel, and Emma realized she was standing at the edge of a possibility she hadn't expected but secretly longed for, as if fate had slipped quietly into her life while she wasn't looking, changing everything in the span of a few hours without a word. As the heater finally hummed steadily, filling the room with comforting warmth, Emma felt a strange mix of relief and lingering tension, but before she could speak, Alex straightened and paused, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "There's something I should tell you," he said, his voice quieter now, carrying a weight that made her heart tighten with curiosity. Emma tilted her head, sensing a shift in the atmosphere, a moment where the ordinary repair visit had taken a deeper turn. Alex leaned slightly against the counter, looking out the window for a moment as if gathering courage, then turned back to her. "I didn't just come here because of the heater," he confessed, and Emma's pulse quickened. I used to live in this neighborhood years ago. Your building, this street, it meant a lot to me. I had someone here once, someone I really cared about, and, well, I never got a chance to say goodbye properly." Emma's chest tightened, a mix of surprise, curiosity, and a strange ache that she couldn't immediately name. The words hung in the air, blending with the soft hum of the heater, making the apartment feel simultaneously small and full of possibility. She watched him closely, noticing the rare vulnerability in his eyes, the kind that only appeared when someone was sharing a piece of their heart with care and honesty. Alex took a deep breath, and for the first time, Emma saw him not just as the skilled, calm, and attractive mechanic in her apartment, but as someone with a history, with emotions, and with memories that intersected with her space in ways she hadn't imagined. She felt a pull toward him, a quiet empathy, and a sense that their meeting today was not mere coincidence. The ordinary Saturday that had begun with frustration and cold suddenly felt layered with meaning, as though fate had nudged them into each other's lives. Emma's mind raced with questions, but she held her silence, letting him continue. "I don't know why I ended up here today," he admitted, a faint, almost shy smile appearing. "Maybe it's the heater, maybe it's something else, but being here, it reminds me of things I've lost, things I've missed." And seeing this apartment, talking to you, it's strange, but comforting. Emma felt a lump in her throat, a warmth spreading through her chest that was part surprise, part longing, and part recognition. She realized that the subtle tension she had felt all morning wasn't just attraction, it was the beginning of something layered, complicated, and potentially meaningful. Their eyes met, and in that instant, the quiet hum of the heater, the soft light of the snowy afternoon, and the stillness of the room around them seemed to dissolve, leaving only the weight of shared emotion. She noticed the way he carried a subtle sadness behind his calm demeanor, a history unspoken yet palpable, and it made her heart ache in ways she hadn't expected. Emma felt a sudden closeness to him, not just as the stranger who had come to repair her heater, but as someone human, someone real, with experiences and regrets, hopes and memories that made him unexpectedly intimate despite having just walked through her door. For a few moments, silence fell between them, comfortable yet charged, the kind of pause that leaves hearts racing and thoughts spinning. Emma realized that her curiosity about him had deepened into something more profound, a desire to understand him, to reach out, to share a connection that was no longer just flirtation or chance. Alex finally broke the silence with a quiet laugh, almost nervous, as if acknowledging the weight of his words. "I know this is strange," he said, coming here, fixing a heater, and suddenly, talking about life and regrets. "But I guess some moments are meant to happen, even if they don't make sense at first." Emma smiled softly, feeling the truth of his words settle in her chest, and she understood that this ordinary day had transformed into something significant, a moment that could shape the next chapter of their lives if they were brave enough to follow it. The heater's warmth no longer mattered as much as the warmth that had sparked between them, subtle but undeniable, a fragile thread of connection woven through shared honesty, quiet laughter, and the gentle vulnerability Alex had just revealed. Emma found herself leaning slightly forward, eager to hear more, yet hesitant, aware that these moments were delicate, rare, and fleeting. She sensed the tension building again, a mix of attraction, curiosity, and the promise of something meaningful, a feeling that made her chest flutter and her thoughts whirl. As Alex began to gather his tools, she realized that even the act of leaving would feel strange, as if the room would suddenly shrink without him, and that she didn't want this ordinary day to end, not now, not after everything that had shifted in such a short time. The combination of honesty, warmth, and quiet charm had changed her perspective, making her see him as more than a repairman, more than a handsome stranger. He was a person with a past, emotions, and a presence that had unexpectedly entered her life and refused to leave quietly. Emma felt hope mingling with surprise, a sense that life had a subtle way of bringing the right people into our worlds at the most unlikely times. The moment hung in the air, fragile and charged, leaving her with a quiet realization that her simple Saturday had become a turning point, a day that had begun with a broken heater but ended with the beginning of something she hadn't dared to imagine, a possibility of connection, understanding, and maybe even love quietly blossoming in the most unexpected place.